going up.
Welcome to our second ever episode of Flagrant Femmes. I am your co-host, Kenzie. Literally been laying floor all day. I'm kind of in my own personal hell of both being sweaty and exhausted. So apologies for that. Alongside me, I've got my partner in crime, Maddy. Maddy, how are you feeling one episode in?
Well, you know what, Kenzie? Honestly, I am actually in my own personal heaven right now, not to rub it in, sorry, but I know this is a women's basketball podcast, but Luka Doncic just really screwed himself and his team in the finals, and he's kind of like my number one enemy, so I'm really excited right now. But I'm also just super excited to get into it. So much has happened this week in women's basketball, some of it good, some of it not so good. It was also great to see the positive response from our first episode. I would like to give a shout out to all of our amazing friends who supported us. So shout out to all of you. Love you guys.
Yeah, literally can't say enough about our group chat friends who are very, very great supporters. Joe, Danny, Nicole, Briar, everybody in there. Drew, can't leave out the man, even though he's a man. We'll
Love
shout
you.
that anyways.
Love you,
but before we really jump into it, breaking news, Chelsea Gray is listed as questionable officially going into Phoenix tomorrow night. That's huge for the Aces. We'll touch on that and the Aces struggles in a little bit, but I did just kind of want to say the production of this was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And I feel like the biggest challenge is like really not stumbling over your words and pausing, which takes every ounce of my concentration. But we have a lot of tea today. Maddy, what are you most excited to rant about this episode?
You weren't even the one stumbling last time. I was the one stumbling, but at least I finally got a mic stand, so I won't be bumping into it, hopefully, at least not as much this time. There's so much to rant about, but honestly, the Olympic stuff has been so over the top this entire week that it's just still dominating my mind. I wish it wasn't, but it's just right there, so I can't wait to just rant about that whole topic.
Yep, you are spot on. We got a lot of bitching, a lot of yapping. Not gonna lie. So let's hop right to it. All right. So right off the jump, we've got Angel Reese's double technical, and then kind of a conversation here about the state of W officiating. I'm sure most of you saw it, but last Wednesday, Angel Reese from Chicago, she was hit with that double tech from Charles Watson. He is quite the enemy of the state here. But essentially, she said something to the official. He didn't like it. She waved her hand at him. He didn't like it. So let's just take a look at that clip if you haven't seen it yet.
At that time, but Jones with the offensive rebound and another reach-in foul on the Chicago Sky. We got a technical foul, too, called, and a double tech. Lady Hamilton's out of here. She said a couple of things that Charles Watson didn't appreciate and has just ejected her from the game with 2:31 left.
I think that was Angel Reese.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Kicked Angel out of the game.
Angel Reese ejected. That is my bad.
So yeah, like I said, Charles Watson, enemy of the state. Maj Forsberg was on that crew too, also enemy of the state here. They're the only two officials I think that I can name off the top of my head that have had multiple ref you suck chance breakout. Like it's literally a minor league hockey game. So given that Sabrina Ionescu, I mean, they were playing with Liberty that night. She said she was ejected for saying that's bullshit. Like apparently that's all Angel said. What happened with this ejection?
Listen, there's only one thing that can explain what happened with that ejection, and it's that a man got in his feelings. Because what happened was Angel said that's bullshit, which is a thing that happens literally 100 times in a basketball game at any level. Let's be honest, like high school and above, that's happening at every game. And She gets the first tech. She waves official off before the first tech even comes in, really. I mean, like, everything happens so quickly. And that's what, in the official pool report after the game, that's what they said the second tech was for. Waving her hand at the ref. Are you kidding me? There shouldn't have been a tech there, period, because, again, this happens literally every week. We have seen so many examples of people doing every single game. You could point to examples. This is a man who took that as a blow to his ego, that she waved him off and decided to exert his power over her in that moment. It's disgusting. And the worst part is rescinding the second tech doesn't do anything now. Like, that is not adequate compensation, in my opinion. There needs to be more done to officials who make calls that are this egregious.
I mean, taking a technical away, it's semantics at that point. You're not doing anything to affect the game. You really need to be disciplining your officials if if something's going to happen, discipline the officials. But funny enough, I literally watched the day before Maisha Hines-Allen from the Mystics essentially do the same thing, except she dropped an F-bomb that was very audible on the broadcast and then waved her arm at the official. We can take a look at that just to kind of show apples to apples.
Offensive rebound number 12 with just 8 second chance points. Nearly another one, but it's some ball.
So that was a single technical foul. That whole interaction where she was essentially in the face of the ref. Angel was standing God knows how many feet away. Is it time to have a serious conversation about the officiating in this league?
You know, the thing that kills me is like that clip, I even see the tech more because she goes up to the official, like she's going towards the official and is like, come on. I think a tech is warranted in that situation. The Angel situation is so much less than, like, Angel is literally walking. That's like what you are taught to do in that. You walk away, go cool off. It's a heat of the moment situation. She's walking away. That's also the thing that kills me about that. So I think it's been time to have a conversation about officiating in the W for a while, honestly. As somebody who watches a lot of NBA basketball, obviously, the officiating there can be quite problematic, but it is nowhere near as problematic as the W. And I've seen people who have recently become WNBA fans who are like, what's going on? Even Pat McAfee later on a clip is like, this is old school football. Like, the physicality level is out of control sometimes. And while that's fun to watch at times as a fan, it gets out of control. And the refs are allowing that. And they're allowing and encouraging tempers to flare when they referee games like this.
I mean, you and I were kind of having a conversation yesterday as I was leaving the Aces game about how I mean, I watched Asia. It was a WWE match in the paint the whole day long. I watched her get elbowed in the throat. I watched her get hit, smacked from all angles. And then what happened? Those fouls weren't called. A scuffle broke out. It got chippy. Like, these officials do that. And I get it. I understand that it's a high pressure job and that it's hard to be perfect, but I feel like my biggest complaint runs hand in hand with like the physicality discourse around the league. Like, these refs just let these games get out of control by calling the hand checks and the off ball fouls. And then they let the contact go in the paint. And then that just takes things from a simmer to a boil. Like, it just completely boils over. Do you have that same sort of sentiment? Like, where do you stand, I guess, as a whole on W officiating?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general there needs to be, especially when it comes to text, I think there needs to be a lot stricter guidelines for when officials can call technical fouls. Obviously, any physical contact with an official, like safety reasons, or if language is egregious or threatening towards the official, that's one thing. But most of the stuff that is said in the heat of the moment are the same words that we're using when we stub our toe at home. So, like, let's be honest about what is being said here. Saying that's bullshit, like, I will say that in front of my 4-year-old niece. Like, it's not that serious. It's unrealistic and unfair to ask professional athletes in the heat of competition to censor themselves every single time. We're all grown-ups here. Act like it and just, like, deal with, like, shit is going to be said. Cursing is going to happen. It's a basketball game. It's a competitive environment. Like, it's going to happen. So as long as it's not crossing a line, and I feel like most sane people know what that line is, but obviously not. And that's why we need to have written, spelled out rules. If this is said, XYZ, these words are said, or these actions are done, then a tech is issued. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And speaking of bruised egos, not to like kind of pivot, but someone on Twitter told me that during the whole Caitlyn Kennedy discourse that bigs should be expected to get beat up in the paint, after I was replying to just some of the discourse saying that Asia Wilson literally gets hit with bats in the paint, doesn't get calls. And I personally feel a little bit vindicated after that photo surfaced after they played the Wings and she was cut, she was bruised. Let's just look at some of those fouls.
Now Monique Billings comes out. She had a busy offseason, Angel Wilson did. The book, as you mentioned, trip to Paris. Shot clock is full. Wilson slices in. They think they can run on Las Vegas. Didn't think they got back as well as they could. Wilson rejected by Billings.
So, both times she's holding her face. The group chat was kind of blowing up after that first clip when Stephanie Suarez just like clocked her straight across the face on that layup. And notice there wasn't a whistle on any of those. I think the third one, she finally got the call, but even on Tuesday against the Lynx, like there were a ton of and ones. Asia spent the whole night in a wrestling match in the paint. What are your thoughts on these non-calls? And is this kind of the passive officiating that we're talking about that grows into this W referee stereotype?
I do not understand why Asia Wilson cannot get a call in this league. It does not matter how many elbows she takes, how much she bleeds. She's got a contact flying out of her eye. The refs do not stop play. They do not care. She had 6 free throw attempts in that game. The clips that you just showed, she had 6 free throw attempts in that entire game. It's disrespectful. And as much as I love the physicality and the passion they play with, Asia in particular, at the bare minimum, the officiating needs to be more fair. If they're going to let Asia get treated like a piñata in the paint, then let everyone else get the same treatment. And De'Erica Hamby, I'm talking to you, by the way, because I heard that.
Oh boy. Anywho, I'm just sick of refs. I'm sick of talking about them. I'm sick of hearing them. I'm sick of seeing them at the games. I don't care. I don't want to hear your whistle. I'm not there to see you. So, but I did, speaking of De'Erica Hamby, I did just want to wrap it up by saying that in the W Wubble back in 2020, Diana Taurasi literally told a referee to meet her in the hotel lobby after the game. And she was standing down there, according to De'Erica Hamby. So do what you will with that information. These girls are not afraid to stand on business. So just be careful if you're in a zebra stripe shirt. All right, we officially have the U.S. women's roster for the Paris Games. I guess we're like 6-ish weeks out. As I said last week, the W's favorite thing to do is dramatic Caitlin Clark discourse. And Maddie, here we are again. What do you make of Caitlin not making the roster?
I think it makes perfect sense, to be honest with you. Wow, I feel like that meme of the guy who's just standing there like Norman Rockwell. She missed the tryouts. Like, she literally missed the actual tryouts, which happened during the NCAA Final Four. So they announced that her tryout, quote unquote, would be her play in the WNBA. And let's be honest about her performance. She is leading the league in turnovers, and it's like by 30. Like, she has 30 turnovers, almost more than the next person. So it's not even close. And while her scoring has been really impressive at times, her inability to handle physicality in particular does not bode well for going up against international competition, especially on a stage like the Olympics. So honestly, I think the real story should be this break is going to be good for her. She's been playing. She just played her entire college season. People are forgetting about that. She just played her entire college season, went to the final, went to the national championship, went right into the WNBA season. She needs a break. Let her get some rest. Let her sleep in her own damn bed and let her get in the weight room. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I get the sentiment of, you want to put your best players on the pedestal. You want people to see them, but like, is it really worth it to really run her into the ground right off the jump, considering how many games they've played? But as you can imagine, the fan and media reaction was extremely overdone. I saw everything from cut Chelsea Gray because, quote, she's not any good, which if you're new here, she hasn't played a game yet, so not really sure where you're getting that from, to why do we need so many centers? not to mention just the general media also crying out about ratings and reverse racism and unfairness. I'm giving you a soapbox, Maddy. This is your opportunity to just get your feelings out about the general reaction.
Okay. I've been waiting for this one. And I'm going to preface this by saying that I am not a Caitlin Clark hater. In fact, I have been a Caitlin Clark fan, believe it or not, since she was a freshman in college. In fact, I feel like a hipster when I'm saying this, but I was like a fan of Caitlin Clark before she actually got popular. Really, her popularity peaked because of Angel Reese, blah, blah, blah. We're barely a month into Caitlin Clark's WNBA career now, and I am already completely exhausted by the discourse surrounding her. This certainly has been no exception to that. I think people honestly need to recognize and understand that the Olympic Games, are not just another run-of-the-mill competition. This is not like your average. This is not the World Cup. This is the Olympics. Competing in the Olympic Games is an honor that athletes dream of for their entire lives. People who don't watch sports tune into the Olympics. People who aren't patriotic, like myself, find themselves shouting USA, USA, USA in our living rooms. There is something so special and unique and like honestly sacred about the Olympics, about the athletes from all over the world who are competing for their country and like wearing their own flag. And we should be celebrating the players who are enjoying that honor. We should be talking about 32-year-old Alyssa Thomas, who made her first Olympic roster. We should be talking about Kalia Copper, who's going to make her Olympics debut. We should be talking about Brittany Griner, who's going to be leaving U.S. soil for the first time after her unlawful detainment in Russia. And before anyone says a word about Diana Taurasi, the 5-time gold medalist who has played in every Olympics since 2004 when I was 7, she's set to break the record for most Olympics appearances in basketball history, man or woman. All that to say, there's so many interesting storylines that we could talk about on this Olympics roster. It's an honor of the highest level, an honor that Caitlin will almost certainly have in the future. So let's focus on the players who are on the roster now. Let's focus on August when we're going to be watching these athletes. And let's stop talking about Caitlin Clark.
Well, it truly harkens back to the conversation we had last week where we were saying Caitlin Clark discourse was once again kind of dominating other storylines that were really great around the league. And pivoting to Caitlin herself, I really liked her response to being left off the roster. I felt like she was really gracious. She recognized the talent level and that it's incredibly high and that missing the team is good motivation. I think, for a young player like that has a promising future, that's good motivation for her to just get in the gym and say, you know what, I need to get better and I'll get there one day. But let's take a listen to her full statement just to kind of see what she said.
Caitlin, what was your reaction when you saw the USA team yesterday, the roster come out?
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the girls that are on the team. I know it's the most competitive team in the world, and I know it could have gone either way of me being on the team, me not being on the team. So, I'm excited for them. I'm going to be rooting them on to win gold. I was a kid that grew up watching the Olympics, so it'll be fun to watch them.
What was your level of disappointment not hearing your name on the roster?
Honestly, no disappointment. I think it just gives you something to work for. It's a dream. Hopefully one day I can be there, and I think it's just a little more motivation. You remember that, and hopefully in 4 years, when 4 years comes back around, I can be there.
Did you have a direct conversation with managing director or whomever's over there at USAB recently?
Yeah, they called me and let me know, and before everything came out, which was really respectful of them, and I appreciated that. And they did the same for every girl that made the team or every girl that didn't make the team. There's a lot of players in the Olympic pool, so it wasn't like I was the only one they had to call. They had to make quite a few calls.
Are you looking forward to a break? From Olympic action, basketball in general, I guess.
Absolutely. It's going to be really nice. I've loved competing every single second, but it's going to be a great month for my body to, first of all, get rest and get healthy and just get a little time away from basketball and the craziness of everything that's been going on, and, just find some peace and quiet for myself. But then additionally, like, a great opportunity for us to work and get better, a great opportunity for myself to get in the weight room, to work on the court and work at things that I want to get better at that I maybe didn't have time going from college to the pro season. So I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, like, we still have a month of games where we have a lot of opportunities to win a lot of games. So that's where my main focus is.
I mean, Caitlin said it herself that they had to make a lot of calls. And I think if you look at the guard pool right now, it's a very stacked group of players. I mean, I mean, there's, how do you argue it? If you want to argue it, how do you argue it? There's just so many good players right now, and you have a lot of newcomers, like you said, you know, with Kalia Copper and even Jackie Young, like these new guards coming in. Do you think the committee got it right? I mean, I know there's a lot of options, Caitlin herself included, but do you think they got it right in terms of guards?
I do think the committee got it right. Like you said, the talent at the guard position is so stacked right now. And also, we have to keep in mind that the Olympics are played in an extremely condensed schedule. They play 8 games in 14 days if you make it all the way to the gold. So if anyone's already struggling with the WNBA scheduling, the Olympics is even worse. And on top of that, it's super high stakes, high pressure environment. You want players with experience in those moments. And I think that's something that people are overlooking in a way.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about this team is that, like, I mean, we're talking about guards. I mean, when you talk about guards, you talk about 3-pointers, and almost like 1 through 10 on this team can shoot a functional 3. Like, Asia's starting to incorporate a catch and shoot 3, and it looks good. Even Nafisa Collier is shooting like 40% on nearly 3 attempts per game. Like, she was cashing them last night. Like, even the bigs on this team can shoot. Is there anything that the committee could have done to improve this team, or is this kind of one of our most dominant teams you can think of in recent memory?
There is nothing that I personally would change about this roster. I think this is the best combination of players available with the right combination of skill set, experience, and health, obviously. But in terms of most dominant in recent memory, I'm not totally sure yet. I'm gonna have to see. That 2016 team was pretty damn stacked, but I think this team could be up there. So we're just gonna have to see. I'm really looking forward to tuning in, even though the games will probably be at 3 a.m.
Well, I, along with you, am pumped to tune in. I'm excited for it. How can you hate women's basketball? I'll take all I can get. What I won't take more of is the Aces busting in Las Vegas. And Monday morning, we got ESPN's power rankings, and the Aces were 7th. And that was dropping 2 spots after back-to-back losses to the Storm and the Sparks. Now they've lost 3 straight after they got drubbed at home by Minnesota. I've got my own thoughts, and they might be clouded slightly by bias because it's my own team. But as an outsider, what do you think is up with the Aces?
Okay, I have been thinking about this so much. It has honestly been weighing on me because I just hate when there is something that I just cannot for the life of me figure out. I have not been able to put my finger on the problem. There is just something that is like off and not right. I cannot figure out what it is. And I think ultimately, like most things in life, there are a host of factors that are contributing to these early struggles. Obviously, injuries play a role in that. Chelsea Gray is the best point guard in the world. I think that's pretty much undisputed at this point. And missing her is huge. And I think people also forget when we have these conversations, people kind of treat like missing your point guard like it's just missing any old player. Missing your point guard is like missing your quarterback. Like, especially when it's somebody like Chelsea Gray who has a life, like who has so many years of experience, like that's a huge loss, but I digress. I also think that we have to keep in mind that these are the defending back-to-back champs. That has put a huge target on the Aces' back, and they are getting the absolute best from every team every single night. Like, every team fights for every game, which is something that I love about the WNBA. Like, I think teams give a great effort every night for the most part, but the talent in the league is just at an all-time high right now. So no team is going to give it to you easy, and least of all if you're the Aces. So teams are coming at them, fouling them hard, making life hellish for them. And I think that's, all of that is playing a role.
I mean, last night I was chatting you basically the entire game, just trying to figure it out. And I agree. I think there are a lot of factors that play into what's going on, but I think the ultimate Achilles has been just the roster problems. I mean, even, fully healthy-ish without Chelsea Gray, they were kind of limping along because it's hard. Kelsey Plum is not, a built-in point guard. Jackie Young's not a built-in point guard. They were figuring it out, but really after KB's injury and then Jackie Young getting sick, like you could just see the fatigue. You could see the lack of heart growing as the games go on. And, we were talking last night about how they're just not getting, if anybody listening watches hockey, you hear the term puck luck. It feels like the Aces just don't have that. They're not getting the bounces, that really zaps the energy out on top of the officiating. I mean, even last night when we were talking about it right when it happened, when Bridget Carlton had knocked that ball out of bounds and it was pretty clearly off of her, the Aces immediately turned the ball over, gave up a 3, and then you just saw the energy just zap out of them. Minnesota went on another huge run. So while the roster issues compile off the court, what do you see specifically on the court with who's there that's concerning you about this team?
Becky Hammon had a quote in one of the Aces press game conferences that I thought was really illuminating. And basically, she just said that their approach sucks. And I think that kind of encapsulates, it's really surprising because the Aces for the past several seasons have been so utterly dominant and have had this mentality, this chip on their shoulders so strongly that I think, like myself, even as somebody who is not like a real Aces fan, has like come to associate with the Aces. And so I think that is the thing that is like really surprising people is we haven't seen that so much from them this season. And I think, to be fair to them, that's something that's really hard to maintain when you've just won back-to-back championships. Like, people are overestimating the psychological, when as much as you want to try, and Asia, I think, does the best job of anybody at doing that. And she has genuine good reasons to feel slighted. I mean, and the Aces do in general in some regards, but it's still, I think, especially for more peripheral players like an Alicia Clark, as much as I love AC, like, it's really hard to maintain that, we have to win when you already have 3 rings at home. Like, it's just really hard to do that, especially as you get farther in your career. So I think my hope is that losing this much early will spark a new fire in them and give them something that they can draw on to give them that inspiration to keep that chip on their shoulder.
Well, to touch back on kind of Chelsea Gray coming back, I think the biggest thing that they've really missed is the communication on both ends of the floor. I think Chelsea Gray, it's really underestimated how much she's talking and constantly communicating, and how that's kind of contagious. Communication starts to spread when one person's really leading the charge. And on top of that, it's the facilitation too on the offensive side. She just makes things easy for everybody else. Nobody is passing to Asia Wilson. Nobody's passing out of fast breaks quite like Chelsea Gray. It's just you can see the lack of it. But I would say I'm a little disappointed in the way that, the year started for Alicia Clark. I think Megan Gustafson had a little bit of a slow start, but is maybe getting a little bit more confident, which is really awesome to see. Becky would actually play her. But Clark is leading the team in turnovers, which is not good. I mean, this is somebody that's supposed to be your 6th player off the bench, not somebody who's supposed to be handling the ball. And the thing, I literally yell this every single game because Texas Tech, I love my girls. They're not very good. They love to take the ball into the paint and then just pick up their dribble. And Alicia Clark is taking dribble handoffs at the top of the arc, getting in near the paint, inside of the arc, and then just picking up her dribble. And then that leads to, like you were saying earlier, the defense, the physicality, it's picking up on the Aces, and then she has to turn and chuck it, and it winds up being a turnover. So there's a lot of long-term concerns here that I think are going to need to be addressed in the off season. I think Chelsea Gray coming back is going to definitely provide a little bit of a spark, but I think there's some things on paper that you're going to have to figure out roster wise. Looking ahead, as they get, a little bit healthier, as Chelsea Gray comes back and they can kind of settle into their normal roles, what's the ceiling looking like for them? I mean, you're 5-5, you're 25% of the way through the season.
For me, as long as the Aces core is together, they're always going to be contenders. And I feel that way regardless of their win-loss record. Honestly, it could be worse, and I would still feel that way, I think. Especially with the way that this season is, this is where I'm going to have like a little bit of a tinfoil hat moment, because here's what I think. I think the Aces are doing what the Chiefs did last year, and they're just acting like, no, okay, they're not acting for real, but they're just like, they're going to look really shitty like this. And then post Olympics, you're going to be like, wait a second, I thought none of their receivers could catch. Wait a second, I thought Alicia Clark literally turned into CTE mode. Like, what's going on here? And then they're just going to rack off a third championship. So that's my tinfoil hat moment. But if you're not buying into that, I do think one concern for the Aces long term is their depth, which I know people have been hurt. Well, they had no depth last season, and look what happened, right? Well, that's true. And that's why I just said that before. But Kate Martin is looking like a legitimate rotation piece. Shout out to her. And if she can continue to develop in that role, hell, they might need the real Alicia Clark, because she might be the new Alicia Clark. So that'll be huge for them. And if they really need her consistent defense and shooting off the bench. So we're going to see.
Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable leaning into your conspiracy thing, honestly, because I have two thoughts. My first thought is that this is a conspiracy for them to finally win at home,
Right.
because they just constantly dominate and have to win on the road. I also have another conspiracy. Aces fans who are here in Vegas and go to the games probably have a little bit better of a grasp on this, but I see it starting to kind of take off on socials. But in the Aces intro video, towards the end, they play Drake. There is a Drake song in the intro video. After it ends, the DJ transitions right into Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. And that feels like a horrendous thing to put out in the ether to potentially affect your aura. So I'm kind of on DJ Joe Green. Like, you probably don't listen to this.
Yeah, I think we need to start a change.org petition.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're listening to Joe Green, you got to change it. It might fix our problems. Something about it's not sitting right in the universe, and it might need to be fixed. So,
Meg
I don't
Thee
know.
Stallion just dropped. Cut that out.
Yeah, figure it out. So, as I mentioned, we are officially about a fourth of the way through the season. You and I both had some preconceived ideas about how teams would look to start the year. I had the Aces, Storm, and Mercury as top 3 teams. And I had the Liberty kind of on the outside. I thought the Liberty weren't really gonna make a huge impact with the way the league got better. But look what happened. It was just the Aces. So we'll throw the standings up over here on the side. These might be a little bit off. I think the Aces and Mercury flipped after last night's games. But what surprised you the most as teams are kind of reaching that 10-game mark and beyond?
I think the biggest surprise for me, honestly, I was going to put the Mystics. I was going to put the Mystics. And then I was like, you know what? I bet the Mystics are going to win. They did win. So I'm glad I didn't say them, because honestly, that wasn't that surprising either. The biggest surprise for me has been this recent skid by the Wings. And I know they're missing Satu Sabali, and they miss her a lot, but they've lost 5 games in a row now. And they're shooting a league worst 28% from 3, 25% over the last 5 games. So they just had 3 days off. So they have another game tomorrow on Thursday. So I really hope they're able to get back track and get back in the win column, because yikes.
Well, I think in terms of pleasant surprises, the Lynx and the Sky have been kind of surprising to me. The Sky, they're just such an easy team to love. Like, genuinely, it's just so easy to just look at their players and love them. And they're sitting in a playoff spot. This is honestly about where they were sitting last year, with a little bit of a different look in terms of a roster. There's so many amazing storylines in Chicago. What are a few that stand out to you?
Well, I love college basketball too. So I love what I'm seeing from rookies Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese. They both balled out tonight, especially. Camilla's really starting to get comfortable, which I love to see. And I also think an underrated storyline this year is Dana Evans. Prior to this season, she had started just 2 games in her 4-year WNBA career, and she stepped into the starting role this season. She's made the most out of her opportunity, putting up career highs pretty much across the board. And also, fun fact, she also hasn't missed a free throw this season. 19 out of 19. Knock on wood.
Yep, knock on wood. I don't have any near me. Sorry, Dana. Just have to rely on Maddy for that. As for Minnesota, they had a pretty eventful offseason. They had some nice free agent signings. But given the depth and the contributions from said depth, because I watched it last night, I was like, oh my God, Kayla McBride's finally coming off. Here comes Courtney Williams just to hit jumpers, and they just whoop that ass all night long. Are the Lynx officially a team in the mix to win a title this season?
Listen, the Lynx have had my teams, the Storm and the Mercury, in hell all season. So I might be a little bit biased on this, but the Lynx look like legit contenders in my book. They are leading the league in 3-point percentage, second in field goal percentage, and their defense looks very scary. I mean, they just practically hung 20 on the Aces. So very scary. I don't know that I would have them quite in the tier with the Aces, Liberty, and Sun. I think that's kind of like those are the main head honchos up there. And so I would probably have the Lynx right below them, but I would not count the Lynx out at this point. And they don't even have Diamond Miller, my girl from Maryland, yet. So,
well, speaking of the Sun, talked about them a little last week. I definitely did not have them being as dominant as they've been this season. I had them around the middle of the pack. I liked their fight against the Liberty the other day, but I'm starting to wonder, Maddy, are your thoughts on that soft early schedule coming to fruition?
Listen, I was rooting for the Sun, but I will say a part of me did feel a little bit vindicated seeing them fall to tougher competition. On the other hand, John Paul Jones did go for 7 from 3 in that game. She has looked unbelievable lately, and the Liberty have been cooking. Hate to admit it. So perhaps that performance actually says more about the Liberty and less about the Sun. I'll be interested to see how they fare against the Aces and the Storm next week. Tough schedule ahead.
You shout like that, they put you in jail right away.
Dude, this is a Wendy's restaurant.
Good job, Kylie. You're doing amazing, sweetie.
We have a new segment. Oh gosh, the cameras are all over the place. We have a new segment this week to debut, courtesy of Maddy, and it's called Talking Head Tiers. So the premise of this exercise is basically to place women's basketball media characters in tiers based on their behavior. We'll pretty much roll clips and then place them accordingly. On the screen, if you're watching the video, we've got our tier names on the left. We've got Straight to Jail. Sir, this is a Wendy's. I'm going to stop you right there. You're on thin ice, buddy, and you're doing great, sweetie. So we've got our characters on the right. We'll call them out kind of as we go, but right off the jump, we have got Pat McAfee, who quite literally might be the loudest man on earth.
So I think what we're trying to say is what the WNBA currently has is what we like to describe as a cash cow. There is a superstar. But I would like the media people that continue to say, this rookie class, this rookie class, this rookie class. Nah, just call it for what it is. There's one white bitch for the Indiana team who is a superstar.
Sports! Oh, wonderful. And we're lucky to talk about them every single day. And yesterday, while talking about sports, I utilized a descriptor that I certainly should not have. I utilized the words white bitch to describe Caitlin Clark as being the superstar in Indiana. Now, when I was saying it, I legitimately meant it in a complimentary fashion, like this is the one, you know, and as I said it, didn't even think, honestly had no idea what was happening on the internet until 2.5 hours later. And I started reading through a lot of comments that were being said, and I felt like actually the worst human on earth for a good portion of my travels yesterday over to Hershey and then into last night, even during Monday Night Raw and flying home and even into this morning from things that people were saying going, damn, those were not my intentions, but that's how you took it. That's on me. I do apologize.
I literally have my hands on my head doing a surrender cobra. Like I just watched Texas Tech lose an upsetting game in football. I'm going to let you kick us off here, Maddy. Pat has been pretty bad, but has he been that bad?
So I want to start off by saying I'm not laughing because it's not funny what he's saying, but it is funny just because it's real and you wouldn't think it's real, especially the fact that was live on ESPN. But no, that did actually air live on ESPN. And the worst part about it is that he genuinely did, like, I genuinely believe him when he says that he did mean that as a compliment. It shows a real lack of experience with women in general, that he would think that a woman, in particular, a woman like Caitlin Clark, would appreciate being referred to that way. But I digress. Pat McAfee reminds me of every douchey frat guy I've ever met. He's toxic, but I don't think he's truly evil. He just has a little bit more Neanderthal DNA than the rest of us. Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Yeah, I was gonna say he reminds me a lot of like the dude at your job that's always trying to be involved with the conversation, even though he may have no idea what's going on. Like you could just make up a band and he'd be like, "Oh my god, yeah, I love them." So I'm gonna just chalk Pat up to being an idiot rather than ill-intentioned. So I'm gonna also roll with Sir. This is a Wendy's. All right, we have got Paul Pierce, the former Celtics great, next.
The thing that bothers me the most, you claim you want the women's game to grow, and then you keep the most popular girl in women's basketball off the team. Women's basketball is at an all-time high, and because of Caitlin Clark. This is a missed opportunity in the girls' game, and I think they're taking a step back. I don't feel it makes sense to me. You know, I'm tired of, like, you know, you want the salaries, you want the accommodations, you want the game to grow. Well, you put Caitlin Clark on the team.
This is the same rundown, tired narrative that all of the casuals love to parrot on social media. But let's be clear. The Olympics are not dying for views. Like, this is not an event that needs people to be watching. So these, and honestly, these same people would be just as mad if Caitlin did make the roster and then she comes in and plays like 4 minutes at the very end against like Fiji or somebody that like we're already up by 50 on. So there's not, and you can't make them happy. You won't make them happy no matter what you do. And I don't know. It's frustrating. Get real. Get with it. I'm going to stop you right there. Maddy, what about you?
Yeah, you know, I really wish I could go back to a time before I heard Paul Pierce talk about women's basketball, because I don't think that's something that any of us ever needed to happen. I think this narrative it's such a tired and worn out narrative that it's something that you can clearly tell he didn't even come up with himself. Like, it feels like he's reading off the teleprompter the way he's Caitlin Clark. The world, nobody would know about without Caitlin Clark. He doesn't even know who Caitlin Clark is. So maybe it's just a you problem. And the fact that you haven't watched the Olympics, you don't know about any of these players. That sounds like you just need to like tap in and do some research, and that's about it. So I'm going to stop you right there.
All right. We are in lockstep right now. I wouldn't have it any other way. All right. Let's take a listen into David Dennis Jr., our next candidate.
The problem here is, and what concerns me going forward, is those people on the fringe that do exist, that are in real life, not just internet trolls, politicians, pundits, and people of the like, who are using Caitlin Clark as an avatar to lash out at the people who they have disdain for, mainly the makeup of the WNBA, black women et al. And they are using her to go against Team USA. What's going to happen in Team USA that is going to be the big tragedy here is the way that they are treated by those people come the summer. We're supposed to support American teams in the Olympics. I want to see that for this team, even if Caitlin Clark is not on that squad.
This is a narrative that I've seen a few people talk about on Twitter, and I'm so glad that somebody finally stepped up and said it on a big outlet like ESPN, because David's spot on with this take. I think it's really similar to the way that religion is weaponized for bigotry, and these people who are on the fringe of women's basketball are legitimately weaponizing Caitlin Clark for their agenda. If you think these people are not hiding racism and misogyny behind these Caitlin Clark takes, go into a Twitter thread. Go into any Twitter thread about Caitlin Clark, especially if it's criticize it, if it's a criticism of Caitlin Clark, you will see it. You'll find out. But I'm loving this take. You're doing great, sweetie. Easy. What say you, Maddy?
First of all, I just want to say that David Dennis Jr. did a Love is Blind recap with my personal favorite football analyst, Mina Kimes. And so I already love that man just off of that. Anybody who ever watched Love is Blind, you should watch that because it's really good. But this clip absolutely made me love him even more. I think he's 100% correct, and he should say so. Many of the people who are talking about Caitlin Clark have shown time and time again that they do not actually give a shit about women's sports or women in general whatsoever. It is solely about using Caitlin Clark as an icon to get off their white supremacist agenda or whatever kind of agenda that they have. They're literally just like, they do not. And that's what I think also people are missing in this whole thing. They're like, oh, well, it's Caitlin Clark. But what? They don't care about Caitlin Clark. Most of these men who are talking, they don't care about her. They don't give a shit about the WNBA growing for real. They don't give a shit about women's sports growing. So it's not about that. It's never been about that.
Well, now we have to move on to the two talking heads I absolutely hate the most. If it wasn't bad enough, it's about to get worse. Let's start with Shannon Sharpe.
At some point in time, we've got to stop talking about we're trying to grow the game. Because listen, is she as accomplished? Will she ever be as accomplished as a Stewie, as an Asia Wilson? Are we really trying to grow the game? Because this is the most popular women's basketball player in the world, and it ain't close. Are we really trying to grow the game? Is that what we're really trying to do? Or are we just talking about we're trying to grow the game and just bull jiving?
Again, here we go with the tired narrative of Caitlin being the savior of this league. And when the hell did basketball become a popularity contest? But like, I'm sorry, I want the best players in the world on the Olympic team. That's not Caitlin. Like she's just not one of the best players in the world yet. There's plenty of time to get there, but we already talked about it earlier. There's several players who are just flat out better that are going to be on this American roster and should be on this American roster. And viral clips of her hitting 3-pointers on TikTok, that's not a justification for putting her on this team. I'm sorry. Like, clicks and eyeballs, it's not a justification. So Shannon, welcome to You're on Thin Ice, buddy. Maddy?
Shannon is like the side characters in an early 2000s teen comedy, just saying, yeah, every time the leader of the group reads someone. Like, he has never had an original thought. In fact, you can basically hear him repeating the same narrative over and over. Are we really talking about growing the game? Are we really talking about growing the game? Are we really talking about you finding a different narrative to make? Like, it's your whole job to be on TV all day, every day. And are we really trying to grow the game? Are we really? What do you think they're doing? What do you think we're out here doing all day, every day? Why do you think we're bitching and moaning so much if we didn't really want to try to grow the game? I don't think he even knows what he's talking about. He might as well be Stephen A's backup dancer. Have your own take for once. You're on thin ice, and it's getting thinner.
And speak of the devil, finally, my absolute arch nemesis, Stephen A. Smith.
You ever heard of Monica McNutt? You have now, because she's on First Take a lot. Shanae Ogumake, ask her how it's been to be on First Take. How about Andrea Carter? How much do you think First Take helped that? I challenge anybody to find a show in sports television that discusses women issues, that discusses the WNBA or women's sports, that highlights and profiles female analysts more than First Take. Andrea, I strongly suggest you rethink such positions, especially when it comes to you, because marketing matters. It's how you get paid. If you don't know that, you better hear me and hear me good. I am telling you right now, you are going to be underpaid for the rest of what I believe will be an illustrious career, unless you Get your mind right about that marketing. It matters. It matters. Janae, you know I'm right.
I hear you.
You know I'm right.
Steven honestly reminds me of like the kids that are on Stan Twitter, and they're just so delusionally arrogant, and no fact of the matter will ever change their mind. And I get it. He's a hot take artist. But frankly, he's a complete moron. I mean, you can have hot takes and still be a moron. They're not mutually exclusive. But his career thrives on clickbaits, and I think he's well aware that coming at beloved figures like Monica and Andrea are going to rile up the women's basketball community, and that's good for him. But I've got nothing else for him. Straight to jail. Maddie, finish us off.
Hearing Stephen A. Smith cover women's basketball on First Take has been the perfect example of be careful what you wish for me, because I will admit there was a time when I was like, it would be nice to like go listen to First Take and then like hear women's basketball being talked about. Wrong. And boo. I could not be more tired of hearing him berate and demean women on national television. I am beyond tired of his know-it-all attitude. The way he spoke about Monica on his podcast was disgusting. And honestly, I think he's an egotistical freak who only cares about money and power. Andrea, Chene, Monica, etc. are all real basketball players and real analysts who averaged more than 2 points per game in college. So Stephen A., straight to jail.
Gotcha. And as if talking head tears didn't give us enough wet blankets, it's time to crown 2 more winners for the most awful women's basketball take we each saw on Twitter this week. That's right. It is time for the wet blanket of the week.
You are going to be underpaid.
I utilized a descriptor that I certainly should not have.
Well, guess what, Monica McNutt? I could have done less. Hey, anyone want to buy a wet blanket?
I'm sorry that I cannot keep my composure when that's happening. It's just and it's funny that the clips that I pulled for that you almost immediately had for that last segment, which is unbelievably hilarious. So shout out to Maddie for that. That's incredible, because yikes. I will kick us off this week, and boy, did I rant about this in person the second I saw it. Kate was just getting her ear chewed off. And essentially what this guy was replying to was Brianna Turner from the Chicago Sky had posted on Twitter, just kind of in concern of their safety, after a man rushed towards Kennedy Carter at the team hotel in DC. And he said, it's a professional game. Players always get fans who take it too far. That's life.
Oh, hell no.
Let me tell you, Johnny boy, how would you feel if some rando just ran up to you and was waiting for you outside your hotel on a work trip because you fucked up a spreadsheet? Like, it's gross, it's weird, it's inappropriate. And listen, fans are entitled to hate players. You were talking about hating on Luka 30 minutes ago. But like, the second you are confronting an athlete in public, you're crossing a line. And let me be clear, you don't want the smoke from a W player, because these girls are bigger than you. They're more in shape than you, and they're more in shape than you'll ever be in your life. So just don't even play it. Don't even try it. Just stay behind your little keyboard, you small little man. Okay, I got my animosity out. I've been waiting for days, literally days, to yell about that. All right, Maddie, please go ahead.
Okay, this idiot. He says, it's really a tragedy that at Caitlin Clark 22 was left off Olympic team. Congratulations on succeeding to drive away every American viewer and toss away all USA dollars that you could have made on March, tick sales, etc. Whoever made this decision should be fired immediately.
Idiot! Oh, what a loser!
Truly, what a loser. First of all, I don't know what March is. I don't know what March has to do with anything here, but I also don't know tickets. We're talking about ticket sales for the the tickets are sold out. If you want to get tickets for the Paris Olympics,
you're not going.
Sold out. You're not going. So I don't know what Brian is talking about. I don't know what world he's from or what he's thinking about. First of all, the first red flag is tagging athletes like this. People who tag, unless you are like making up something, you made some beautiful art or something you're trying to show. Like, why are you tagging the athlete? Why are you you're nobody. Like, don't do that. It's weird. That's the first strike. The second strike is you literally never gave a shit about the Olympics, Brian. I know you have never watched a women's basketball Olympics game in your fucking life. Get a grip. No one cares what you think. Goodbye.
I could not have said it better myself. I want to know what it's like. Just a day in the life. Just a day in the life of one of these reply guys who hops on Twitter and says something that like writers in Hollywood could not come up with. Like these takes are that level of dumb. Like I genuinely don't know what these people are doing, what they're thinking, if they're bots. I don't know what it is. It drives me absolutely crazy.
Parker, the block shot by CP. To Stewart, wide open, and oh my goodness, blocked by Mika Mule.
All right, so that's a new video for the chase down. I had to add in some epic chase down blocks. I specifically put in that clip of Maya Moore stuffing Stewie just for Maddy because I know she was going to love it. Just like last week, we have 30 seconds to rapid fire takes. We have 5 topics each. We'll pass them back and forth like ping pong. If you hear the buzzer, you've hit the time limit. Maddy, you were the only buzzer last week. So I added a clock on screen down here. That's going to kind of guide you a little bit. So I have faith in you to put up a clean sheet, but you never know. So the timer's set. Give me your thoughts on Nancy Lieberman's "I would have punched her in the face" comment, referring to Caitlin Clark and Kennedy Carter.
This is yet another example of people, and white women in particular, feeding into the narrative that we need to protect sweet little Caitlin from the big bad women of the WNBA. Responding to a hip check with a punch to the face would be not only excessive but moronic in any environment. Nancy needs to worry less about Caitlin punching back and more about firing whichever makeup artist told her that under eye liner is still popular in 2024. Now, is Kate Martin becoming everybody's best friend out in Vegas or what?
I mean, the way that they've loved Kate Martin down is like absolutely incredible. Coach Hammond mentioned before the Dallas game that Asia went out and personally bought Kate a cake, a tiara, and a birthday ribbon on her birthday. And Asia has the scream giggle too that it's so funny, and Kate managed to trigger it after making a half-court shot during practice a few weeks ago. So I think it's safe to say that Kate has quickly established herself as part of the family in Vegas. All right, so Cam Brink, she spoke on privilege and acceptance in an interview with Uprocks last week. Give us your quick thoughts on the article.
I love that Cam took the opportunity to use her platform to acknowledge her privilege and the many different privileges that exist within the WNBA and society at large. I especially appreciate the fact that this wasn't even prompted. The original question was, finish this sentence, "I will not rest until." And she said the WNBA is even more iconic than it is now. And then it naturally evolved from there. That tells me this is genuinely something she thinks about and believes in. And I think as white women, the absolute bare minimum is acknowledging and naming the privileges that you have and working to uplift marginalized communities. And as white women, we also deserve to be buzzed.
Yeah, listen, I told you I was gonna back you up on that. I was gonna let the clock go over and not even give you an ounce of grief because you're right. Speak on it. Speak on it.
Okay, moving on. The Aces had a game flexed off of a national television spot. Are you good?
Well, originally I was like pretty upset about it. And now I'm kind of like, well, who wants to watch them anyway? I don't. But I'm just kidding. Kind of. If I have to watch the Mystics and Fever out tank each other on ESPN, like, why are you taking the aces off there? Why are you taking the back-to-back champs on there, especially on a Saturday in a primetime spot? There's only one other game that day that the aces got flexed off of, so it's not even an aces specific gripe. Kathy Engelbert, learn how to schedule, learn how to deal with it. It's a mess, and then maybe I'll stop booing you. All right, Alyssa Peely signed with Nike's indigenous focused brand N7. How incredible is that?
You already know Alyssa Peely is my girl, Pac-12 legend. I could not be happier to see her partnering with Nike. I think it's really important to have that indigenous representation in sports for young people to see athletes like her and know that they can grow up and possibly sign with Nike or other big brands someday. I think that's beautiful and also super necessary. So I've loved to see how Peely has embraced her indigenous heritage and that Nike is celebrating that too. Kenzie, you saw it live, but tell us about Rickea Jackson matching her career high in points in a huge win over Vegas.
Well, I said last week I was confused about the lack of minutes that she had against Vegas earlier in the year, and I might have asked for too much because Rickea ate us up. She had 16 and 5 in 23 minutes. She had some incredibly clutch buckets. I mean, it was late in the game, and she's driving into contact, drawing an and one with minutes left in the game. Like, I was literally up in that suite cheering. So Rickea is going to be a franchise player. Let's not even talk about it. Thank you, Kurt, for finally giving the minutes and freedom that she deserves. All right. So anyway, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but Stephen A. Smith did it again, this time with Andrea Carter. What happened now?
Stephen A. basically said Andrea would be damned to the poorhouse for the rest of her career if she didn't start bowing down to the Clark Kingdom. And Andrea said, the difference between you and I, Stephen, is that I have values and integrity that I'm not willing to compromise for money, unlike you. Oh, and my marketing dollars are fine, just thank you. And then she dropped the mic. So I'm actually starting to think this is some weird humiliation kink because he keeps letting women torch him on his own show. Speaking of getting torched, the league announced on Monday that the W has started 2024 with its highest attendance and most watched national TV games.
I think we've all known the momentum was there, but I think it's true when people say that the rookie class has helped tip this thing over and the W is officially blowing up. From merchandise to league pass, like the W is setting records and everything. They're 200% up in everything. And I feel like the most notable area of growth is the national TV games, which are like up 300%, sitting at like 1.3 million. I mean, it's long overdue, but finally everybody is starting to eat. Finally. All right, well, Christy Sides threw her team under the bus on Monday after a loss at Connecticut. There was the Twitter performance, and now this.
Christy is on the hot seat, and we can see the sweat dripping after every Fever loss. But this type of behavior is the last thing you should be doing if you want to boost team morale, particularly with a really young team. Losing is nothing new for the Fever. Obviously, they just had back-to-back number one picks. But the way you lose is also important. It's a long season. And if Christy continues to play the blame game, she might lose the locker room and her job. Now, both Jackie Young and Ezzy Magbegor have been getting into it with other players this season. Are the quiet introvert girls starting to rise up?
I think it's a pretty well-known fact that you shouldn't mess with quiet people because they will mess you up the worst. The people barking at you loudest, they're probably full of it. The Aces literally say Jackie's game is loud, Jackie's quiet. But now she's had scuffles with, No Shampoo Sophie and Aerial Powers, and now Ezzy Magbegor is getting it into it, and Nafisa Collier. I like the fire that these players are showing. All I know is if Jackie Young's yelling at me, I don't want that smoke. I did something wrong. I'm so sorry, Jackie. I'm so sorry. I'm going to let myself get buzzed just because I want to even up the playing field because you didn't deserve a buzzer for that great monologue on cam. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this week's edition of the Flagrant Femmes. I had an absolute blast at crypto. We lost. I still had fun because I got to see Cam and Rickea play. So is what it is. However, I'm looking forward to the Femmes taking over Footprint in Phoenix tomorrow. Maddy, any parting thoughts for the people?
I just want to say that I really hope we don't have to make a part 2 and that we don't have more clips of men being idiots for next week's episode. So that's my I'm holding on to hope. I think it's highly unlikely, but I'm just holding on to hope that men can keep their mouths shut. Spend your money, talk with your wallet. That's all we want to hear from you right now. Thank you.
Well, maybe we'll be able to fit in another no look rankings at some point, but kind of feels like we might have just some men bashing segments all the time, thanks to men who just can't help themselves. Can't help themselves at all. Anyways, I will be with my friends Maddy and Kara tomorrow. I'll have a fat money line bet on the Mercury. So aside from it being incredibly hot, which it's hot in Phoenix, it's hot in Vegas, we can't get away from it, I am going to have myself a time. Anywho, as always, we will catch you guys on Twitter. We are at Flagrant Femmes. If you aren't following, we will see you next week. And remember, mess with the femmes, catch a flagrant.
Going up.